Web accessible infographics. Part 3. Inclusive design centers access needs and barriers. Web accessibility is not just about providing tools and resources to individuals with disabilities. It's fundamentally about putting design for accessibility in the center of the design process in order to meet the access needs for all users. We'll take a look at users with disabilities and how inclusive infographics can be designed in order to support their needs. First, we need to have an understanding of how people with disabilities interact with our content. We use elemental guidelines to make content accessible by focusing on foundational design areas. For beginners, we need to consider how our design choices impact users. The 4 design focus areas for beginners are navigable layout, simple design elements, alternatives to text, and simplicity. The most common disabilities to begin are cognitive, visual, motor, and auditory. Cognitive. These disabilities are often invisible and are by far the most prevalent disability. Cognitive disabilities and disorders is often a term used as an umbrella to encompass many different areas. These include neurodevelopment, such as ADHD, neurological, such as dysgraphia, mental health, such as schizophrenia, perceptual processing, such as disabilities like dyscalculia, and seizure disorders. To begin, we focus on a few design tips for cognitive disabilities. Use simple, concise sentences. A good practice is if you can't describe it, then try a different image to convey the message. Avoid using color to convey meaning. Rather, use texts, bold, or symbols or patterns to make an emphasis. Abstract concepts can be difficult to users, such as those with autism. Some colors are indistinguishable for some with color blindness. Too bright on the eyes can trigger headaches for some. Be conscientious with the colors you choose. Next, describe accurately what you see. Avoid using idioms or figures of speech and other jargon that is only understandable to some demographics of people. Often, this has the capacity to exclude those who may not be able to link the connection between the intended message and the description. Limit this distraction for those who may spend too much effort trying to decipher the message behind. This requires us to describe exactly what we see. Lastly, be intentional with your font choices. Some fonts are more inaccessible than others. Font choices can be changed using size, line weight, and style. Avoid serif fonts. This can make it difficult for many users to read the content, such as those with dyslexia or need to magnify content. For those without disabilities, cursive can be just as difficult for language learners as the characters don't always match. A readable font is one that is accessible at any size, despite background color, ample space between the letters, and many other characteristics. Visual impairments and disabilities are defined as decreased ability to see a degree that causes problems relating to the eyes. There are many vision impairments to consider. A few are color blindness, which affects 1 in 12 men. This means limitations in color perception and indistinguishability. Visual acuity, which is sharpness of vision, light sensitivity to brightness, field of vision, how far you can see or depth of field, contrast sensitivity, such as the inability to distinguish the difference between low and low contrast colors, and macular degeneration. A few design tips for visual disabilities and disorders. Use high contrast colors. High contrast can ease searching for content for low vision viewers, but bright color may cause inaccessibility for others. Therefore, use a web accessibility checker, which can help in design and help you identify to support contrast requirements. Next, follow a logical layout. Follow a linear logical layout for screen readers, such as use of headers, subheaders, and paragraph text. Next, alternative text requires non-text items, such as images, to have the option of text descriptions. HTML is one of the most accessible ways to add alternative text for screen readers, but you can also do this by adding a little description directly underneath. Ensure viewability when text is magnified to 200%. Often, what can happen is text from far away looks really good, but when you zoom in, it can become jargon. Motor disabilities. Just like other disabilities, motor disabilities can be temporary, situational, or permanent. There are many considerations that inhibit mobility for precision and navigation. These things can include neurodegenerative, repetitive stress, paralysis, and physical damage. A few design tips for motor disabilities and disorders. Don't demand precision. Make clickable actions large enough that don't require incredibly precise clicks to interact with hyperlinks, buttons, or downloads. Design with mobile and touch screen in mind. Many users are accessing the internet through mobile devices. This means creating inclusive design requires that mobile accessibility is at the forefront. Auditory disabilities include mild to moderate hearing impairment, partial loss, or difficulty, which can be problematic in regards to audio content. For those who are hard of hearing, this refers to mild to moderate hearing impairment in at least one ear. Deafness, deafness refers to substantial hearing impairment in both ears. For accessible infographic design, tagged PDF files are good common practice. We'll look later at how to tag PDF files in PowerPoint and Google Slides. Lastly, when designing for all users who do and do not have disabilities, it's a good practice to keep it simple. By following it, keeping it simple, it sets the designer up for a lens of accessibility from the beginner. Designing accessibility requires designing for any user, anywhere, at any time.